Regrets from Candace, who can't make it. Want to welcome Public Member Balcom with us today. Hopefully he's having a good week. First item on the agenda, PLN 23-008, the Tire Man redesignation and rezoning final report. Leanne Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. So this is the final report and presentation for the Tire Man application. So the subject property again is located at 77 Highway 1 in Mount Uniacke. The property totals 2.29 hectares in size, and it is split zoned regional commercial with a portion of rural use at the rear of the property, and is designated regional commercial and rural use as well. And it is located in the Mount Uniacke Growth Management Area. So the applicant has requested to change the designation from the rural use portion of the property to the regional commercial designation, as well as the zone from rural use to regional commercial, in order to enable the future expansion of the auto repair and maintenance use that's currently on the property. So this is the original site plan that was done for the Tire Man site. So it's the rear portion of the property at the back that's going to be rezoned and redesignated. So auto repair and maintenance use is not currently permitted in the rural use zones. So the applicant has requested to change the zone and designation to the regional commercial in order to be consistent with the rest of the property. And the applicant will have to undergo site plan approval for the expansion of the business if this application is approved. So staff have referred to our MPS policies associated with the Mount Uniacke Growth Management Area, as well as our general policies related to amending the MPS and LUB, as well as policies for expanding the regional commercial designation. So a full list of the policy analysis is in the staff report. Citizen engagement. So there was an initial notice placed in the Chronicle Herald in August of this year, and a public information meeting was held in September. So we did mail out letters to all property owners within 300 meters. And there were 3 members of council and the applicant attended the meeting. No public members were in attendance and no questions or concerns were raised at the meeting. And we also sent out a letter and questionnaire to property owners and residents, again within 300 meters. So we sent out 25 questionnaires and 1 was returned. And the response was that the application will have no impact on them or their property. And a public hearing for this application has been scheduled for next week. So lastly, staff have completed the review for the proposal to change to the rural use portion to the regional commercial zone and designation. And the proposed amendments have been evaluated using all applicable policies in the MPS and were found to be consistent. So staff are recommending approval. And council's decision on this application is not appealable to the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board. And the recommendation is for second reading and approval of the application. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Leanne. Warden Ralston.
I would move that Planning Advisory Committee recommend that council give second reading and approve a proposal for a portion of PID 453-37722 to change the designation from rural use to regional commercial and the zone from rural use to regional commercial.
It's moved in second. Nobody wishing to speak. What is your wish? Questions being called. We'll go to the vote. And it's passed unanimous, those in attendance. Thank you, Leanne. Next item on the agenda is the Mount Uniacke Secondary Planning Strategy Scoping Report. Debbie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As part of the East Hants Plan update, Council directed staff to add the Mount Uniacke Secondary Planning Strategy as a future project to Section E3 Municipal Projects and Studies of the Municipal Planning Strategy. The secondary planning strategy was also approved by Council through the adoption of the East Hants 2023 and 2024 business plan. Now that the plan update is complete, the secondary planning strategy can be initiated. So what is the secondary planning strategy? It is part of the official community plan that contains policies and land use regulations in a defined area of the municipality where major changes are expected and/or desired. In the case of the Mount Uniacke Secondary Planning Strategy, the study will assist the community by identifying large areas of underutilized land that would benefit from increased densification. It will also establish a detailed planning framework, land uses, identify transportation improvements, and considers issues surrounding on-site services such as potable water and wastewater disposal. The goal of the secondary plan is to ensure that new development will promote and support high-quality design and establish an appropriate mix of new land uses and new development. It also reinforces the need for a healthy, vibrant, complete, and sustainable community. So here we have a map just showing the Mount Uniacke Lakelands area. The area outlined here in red is the growth management area for Mount Uniacke, and that's already within our planning documents. For the study, we have increased the size of it to go from the HRM border along Highway 101 to the West Hants border here. Then it goes up around provincial lands and up to the RCDD lands. That's the Rural Comprehensive Development District where Cottage Country is located. The reason we chose such a large study area is because we've had development interest in both Lakelands and along the East Uniacke Road. And when considering the densification of the area, we also have to consider in connections and how those connections are going to take place through both communities. So the study outline, a comprehensive secondary planning strategy involves several steps, including but not limited to background informational reports, surveys, community meetings, land use suitability analysis, consultation with provincial departments, and consultation with other reviewing agencies. Many of the background papers will be prepared for the secondary planning strategy will involve consultation with our reviewing agencies, and staff expect that background papers will include, but not limited to, wastewater disposal for multiple unit development, water quality and quantity in Mount Uniacke, walkability, connectivity, and transit, future commercial land needs, and open space discussion and consideration of watersheds. So we just have a chart here showing some of the steps that are to be included in the plan process. So we'll start with a community survey in 2024. We'll move on to a land suitability analysis. We'll do consultation with our reviewing agencies. And then step 4 and 5, community open house and background reports. They'll kind of be mixed together. You'll receive some background reports before the community open house and maybe some afterwards, depending on how our consultation with the reviewing agencies go. All of these steps will come together to form a recommendations report that'll be presented to Planning and Advisory Committee. You'll also hear from us throughout the process as well. Complementary studies. The Mount Uniacke Secondary Planning Strategy will use other municipal documents and studies in the development of the plan. Supporting documents include the new Mount Uniacke Recreation Plan, the Parks, Recreation, and Active Transportation Plan, the Playground Development Strategy, and the Economic Development Strategy. In order to support the planning process, staff have identified the requirement for hydrogeological study for the secondary plan area. Considering that there are no municipal services in the study area, all potable water will have to come from private well water. In order to determine if densification in the study area is possible, staff need to determine if the quality and quantity of water is sufficient to permit development intensification. Staff expect that the hydrogeological study will be similar to the study that was completed for the Milford Growth Management Area. The cost of the study will be added to the 2024-2025 draft budget for council consideration. So the survey. As one of the first steps in the secondary planning strategy process, residents and property owners within the study area will be asked to complete a digital survey. Residents not able to complete the digital survey can request a hard copy of the survey for completion. The intention of the survey is to get an in-depth feel for how residents currently view their community and how they would like to see their community evolve. Results from the survey will be presented to Planning and Advisory Committee and will be used to help in making informed decisions on planning, policy, and regulation changes. And a sample of those survey questions have been attached to the staff's report. So the recommendation is to get direction to staff to initiate the Mount Uniacke Secondary Planning Strategy as outlined in the scoping report. And the recommended motion is below. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Nobody wishing to speak what is your wish? Council Musa.
I would like to move the recommended motion.
So moved. Moved in second.
Question?
Questions being called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimous with those present. Thank you, Debbie. Next item is the housing strategy. It would be by Director Woodford, so who's taking that? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Rachel, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So housing has become a growing concern across Nova Scotia with the increasing cost of housing, the limited availability of homes for sale or rent, and the inability of the system to add new dwelling units fast enough to satisfy demand based on population growth. Of particular concern are low-income individuals who have difficulty competing for open market housing. As shown on the slide, the price of a home in Nova Scotia has doubled in the past decade, and the number of units for sale at any one time has decreased significantly. So on the chart here on the left, you can see the very start of this is January 2014, and at that point in time, the price indicated here was around $225,000. Then if we move forward to July 2023, the price is $450,000, and that's the residential average price for Nova Scotia. The chart across to the right there is residential months of inventory, and you can see 2014, there's over a year's worth of inventory, and in 2023, there was around 4 months of inventory. So CMHC considers a healthy vacancy rate to be between 3% and 5%. And just the 2022 vacancy rate in East Hants was 0%. And the two charts here show that the growth of population and dwellings. So as you can see by this chart here, the dwelling completions is the red line, and the blue line is the growth in population. And over the past few years, that population has increased significantly, but the housing completion hasn't kind of kept up with that supply requirement. So this graphic shows that only 3% of all rental units in HRM are considered affordable to low-income individuals. So similar results would be expected in East Hants, but we don't have those particular statistics. And affordability has obviously been impacted as a result of this shortage. So the reason for the current housing situation is a strong population growth over the past several years. Nova Scotia population was expected to begin a long period of slow decline from 2011 onwards. And you can see here on the graphic, this is the population, which is fairly steady. But this trend did emerge. Sorry, start again. This trend suddenly stopped and reversed in 2016. And since then, Nova Scotia has added over 120,000 residents with no sign of a slowdown. And you can see the population increase here. It starts to increase around 2017 and grows up significantly. And it was around this point here, July the 1st, 2023, was over 1,058,000. So East Hants has an official community plan in compliance with the statements of provincial interest regarding housing. Specifically, accessory dwelling units are permitted wherever a single unit dwelling is permitted. There are small option or group homes are permitted as single unit dwellings. And the planning documents use a variety of zones that permit denser forms of housing, including manufactured houses, multi-units, semi-detached units, and townhouses. There's also a provision for unique housing solutions, such as tiny homes on wheels and urban cottage developments. And this is an example in the land use bylaw that shows urban cottage developments. So we have these very small units that are fronting onto a central green area, and then footways to the actual buildings themselves. East Hants has also been planning for and making critical investment in sewer and water infrastructure to enable growth, such as the Enfield water treatment plants, the Shubenacadie wastewater treatment plants. Over the past decade, East Hants Council has approved development that enables almost 6,000 dwelling units to be built. This housing contains a wide range of unit types and will eventually house an estimated 14,350 new East Hants residents, and this will increase the population by 58%. An additional 1,500 units are currently in the application process, and developer interest remains strong in East Hants, with other projects in discussion between staff and the development community. So there are an estimated almost 12,000 housing units in East Hants, and they're broken down 84% single detached, 6% semi-detached, 2% townhouses, and 8% multi-units. Although East Hants is heavily skewed towards single-unit dwellings, this has been changing over the past several years. And permits of new dwellings in 2022 include 52% of single detached, 19% semi-detached, 19% townhouses, and 10% multi-units. The vast majority of housing in East Hants is private market housing. However, there is also some non-market public housing in East Hants. So the Nova Scotia Public Housing Agency, which was created in 2022 from 5 merged housing agencies, they own 11,200 dwellings across the province that provide affordable housing to low-income Nova Scotians. And in East Hants, NSPHA owns 15 properties with a total of 84 units. And the communities that those are located in are included on the presentation slide. Of these, they also own 5 senior residences, and again, those are listed in the presentation slide. The Corridor Community Option Society also provide non-market housing for 14 individuals with intellectual disabilities within 3 properties in Enfield and Lance. And there are also 4 nursing home residential care facilities in East Hants. So this is a good graphic representation of a range of housing options and security, usually called the housing continuum or transect. And this is useful to highlight which, if any, sectors are missing in the municipality. For example, East Hants has no emergency shelters for homeless individuals. So looking at a municipal housing strategy, it's typically intended to better understand housing trends and needs in a municipality, identify measures a municipality can take to enable additional housing to be built, establish measurable targets for the number of units created and/or affordability of housing. So the province is responsible for public and non-market housing programs. Despite this, the statement of provincial interest regarding housing requires municipalities to take steps within their planning documents to ensure a variety of housing is permitted. Municipalities also have control over a number of areas beyond zoning and can influence the supply and cost of housing. A housing strategy would highlight those areas and outline actions a municipality is proposing to take. So this list here is what a typical housing strategy would include. So we have a needs assessment, zoning and land use regulations, and there's a list of things that could be included in the presentation there. Incentives, use of surplus land, infrastructure, community engagement, short, medium, and long-term actions, monitoring, and evaluation. So a housing needs assessment is a typical first step in developing a housing strategy. The province of Nova Scotia engaged Turner Drake and Partners to prepare a housing needs assessment for the province, as well as for each municipality. And that document for East Hants was released earlier this year. The report attempts to identify the projected housing needs out to the year 2032 and estimate the gap in required units. Staff have reviewed that report and found it to be of limited use, given that the report focuses specifically on East Hants without taking into account the regional focus and the connection to HRM. The report does actually say that it's important to identify the primary limitations of the model. It cannot consider what impacts of nearby community growth might have locally. And specifically, East Hants market condition is significantly related to the nature of the HRM balance of supply and demand. That report also identifies a potential shortfall in housing by estimating an annual need of 220 dwelling units and construction of only 175 per year. But this number was derived taking average permits from 2016 to 2021. However, in 2022 alone, 372 units were permitted. And the study also didn't take into consideration the large amounts of housing already approved by council or the steps the municipality has taken to increase capacity, such as hiring additional building inspection and development control staff. So the Director, Planning and Development outlined two options. The first option is creating a housing advisory working group to prepare a draft housing strategy for council's consideration. And the working group could be comprised of 2 councillors, 2 members of the development community, 2 members of the non-profit housing community, and 1 public member at large. And the second option is for staff to draft the plan for council after initial direction. Consultation with stakeholders could involve requesting initial feedback and then comments on a draft strategy. Staff are in favour of option 1, as it could provide more in-depth discussions with stakeholders and additional time to deal with the topic than the executive committee agenda usually affords. So the recommended first steps is decide on an option for the preparation of the strategy, so option 1 or option 2, and invite Max Chauvin, who is the HRM Director of Housing and Homelessness, to speak to Planning Advisory Committee. He is a leading thinker in the region on the issue of housing, and his contribution will no doubt be invaluable as we begin this project. So the recommended motion is that Planning Advisory Committee recommend that Council authorise staff to begin the preparation of a terms of reference for Municipal Housing Working Group, authorise staff to begin recruiting for the working group, and invite Max Chauvin, the HRM Director of Housing and Homelessness, to present to PAC. And the alternative motion is up there on the screen as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. First up to speak, Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, is going to move the motion, the recommended motion that Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council authorize staff to begin the preparation of the terms of reference for a municipal housing working group, authorize staff to begin recruiting for municipal housing working group, and invite Max Chauvin, HRM Director of Housing and Homelessness, to present to PAC.
Move in second. On before the motion. Councilor Nicole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. So can you give me, like, in a nutshell, can you define, actually, can you scroll back to the roles of both groups, not so far back? In a nutshell, can you define the role of the group that would be composed of the councillors, developers, members of nonprofit, and a member at large?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that would be worked out in the terms of reference. I know for the plan update in 2016, there was a committee that discussed different topics and provided direction and recommendations to Planning Advisory Committee on how to move forward on those topics. So the role of those people would be to provide that kind of expert opinion on those particular issues and then provide recommendations to Planning Advisory Committee.
I see, versus staff doing that.
Yes, yes. The second option there we would go out to stakeholders and get feedback to provide. It's just the first option allows more time to have those discussions and provide greater feedback. You know, Planning Advisory Committee or Council may have specific questions that they want us to go back to the working group about, so it will enable us to have that kind of back and forth discussions. rather than just consulting with stakeholders and then providing those comments to Plan Advisory Committee and Council.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all, Counselor?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Rhino.
Yes. Sometimes I think we're too quick to make motions here before consideration and talk has been had. But since I was on before the motion, it did talk about go back to housing units. I think we had some in Maitland and so on. Those units in I think there are 2 units in Maitland. They're working out very well kept, and are very useful to families in need. Well, where I think we council should be pressing is, in this report, it also said it had seniors units in a lot of areas, one in Knoll and one in Maitland. I do believe that this council, is my thought, that we should be pressing for a third seniors unit in the Hants North area. We should be pressing for one in Kennecook. The other 2, to my knowledge, are full all the time, and there's a waiting list to get on them. And by way of doing that, if another one was created, let's say for the central part of Hants North, which would be the Kennecook area, it may alleviate some of the crisis, because it would open up homes that people or apartments that people are living in now, if they were chosen to go into a seniors unit. So while I don't disagree with the motion, I think that, with there's stuff that we can be doing now, and perhaps pushing for a third seniors unit in the Hants North area would be the way that I would like to see us go right away, and possibly turning the province to trying to get a couple more of those housing units, family housing units, somewhere in the Hants North area. So those are my thoughts right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the 2 councillor can be 3? So every region can be represented, like every area can be represented on that. So because we have Mount Uniacke have his own, like probably like it's semi-urban, like the rural area and the corridor, like this way, because we know what needed in our area, and every area should be represented on that, if it's possible.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this is just what this group could be composed of. That's really down to council to decide how they want that group to be composed. And the terms of reference hasn't been drafted yet, so there's an opportunity to have that. Staff will provide that recommendation, and then council can make their decision on how they want that makeup of that advisory group.
Yeah, but once this motion passed, we cannot change it, right?
The motion, sorry, through you,
already
Mr.
put the
Chair, it
motion
doesn't set the terms of reference. It's just saying a terms of reference will be developed. So this is just staff's initial thought on what that could include, but this recommended motion doesn't put that into place.
Thank you.
Is that all, Counselor? Thank you. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Well, I guess I'm kind of looking at it through a little bit of a different lens, and I understand the recommended motion to create another committee with these different members, but my thoughts are that we already have public members on PAC, and public members who have been members of PAC long enough that they understand how things work and the processes that we go through. And to strike an entirely new committee with 2 or 3, whatever counselors on it, and basically whether they're members of the development community or the public at large or whatever, the other members being possibly people who don't really have an understanding of what's involved in planning and zoning and what we are responsible for and what we're not responsible for, and even the, even the mandate of the committee could provide some confusion. And this committee, if created, is going to bring reports back to PAC. And PAC is going to discuss them. I don't know, to me, it just seems like we're reinventing the wheel, so to speak, because staff interact regularly with the development community and members of the development community, and it's never hard to get the opinions of the development community about something that we propose to do or not to do. And as I said, we already have public members on this committee, and I suspect that in something like this around housing, that every counselor here is going to have specific opinions and questions relating to the subject, particularly in our own areas. So just, and not that I have any problem with public input, but I think we already have that, and I think there's opportunity to get the other information that's needed from the folks in the development community and the nonprofit housing community. I guess I would have preferred option 2 myself, to let staff go and get information from the development community and the nonprofit community and bring it to PAC, where we already have public members at large. And that way, all members of committee and of council get the information at the same time, as well as our public members. It just harkens back for me to the time when Police Advisory Committee was a separate committee with just a few counselors and a few members of public. And what happened was some counselors, we felt like we were out of the loop about everything, and there was repetition, and anyway, those are just my comments. So I won't be supporting the motion for that reason, because I just think it would be more efficient to do it the other way. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Senator Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Excuse me. Yeah, so right off the bat, I was looking and thinking that we'd be really hard-pressed to whittle it down to 2 counselors who would be on this. I think that there's different areas that have different issues, and I'm not saying that 2 counselors is the number that you're going with, but the warden is right. Everybody is going to want to weigh in on this. It's such an important topic, and it is going to be a discussion no matter what option. It's going to be a time-consuming discussion no matter what option we do. But I feel like it's a bit redundant to be putting together this group with the members with their own agendas, and trying to come up with something that we are going to be ultimately weighing in on. I prefer option 2 myself as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking in support of option 1, I view option 1 very similar to the creation of the Accessibility Committee. It's something that affects everybody in every region. Getting the people in the room to have those conversations in a form different than this. When we look at what's up there, it says like the work could be composed of. It says could be, right? We're here to identify, do we want to create a subgroup to look at this in depth, or do we want to leave the in-depth and the feelings of what we would have up to staff to come back and present to us? Because it's been my experience a lot of the times we get stuff coming back from staff and they look at it through their lens, and it doesn't really fit all of the areas of concern for certain people. And we ended up having things and certain reports, I'll use the old thing about roosters and chickens, come back 15,000 times because it really doesn't meet the intent. I believe firmly that a small working group comprised of the stakeholders, and the biggest one is going to be the nonprofit housing community, and maybe there's 2 public members, but when we get down to it, the work that's done in those smaller groups and the reports that are going to come back are going to be more centric to what is happening on the ground currently in East Hants from the people who are out there doing the work, rather than staff giving us an executive summary of what they've polled of what's going on. Sometimes for some of the workings in some of these smaller committees, when you get the nonprofit housing community and some of the developers together working on a common goal for a common strategy, there are second and third order effects that maybe they start to partner and they have the information that they didn't know with each other, because they don't normally regularly meet as much as our staff would meet with developers. So there's opportunities here for benefit throughout. And with the housing strategy being something completely new, I think having these reports come back from a smaller group to council for us to dissect and then send back to the smaller group, either for more information, also helps alleviate some of the staff time. Our staff is already stretched thin enough as it is, as we all know. We don't have a lot of staff. You know, if we had 130 people here, I'd have no problem, but we don't. We have the same people doing almost all of our reports. So this is not something I believe that can wait to go in the work cycle for 6 to 8 to 9 to 10 months down the road because of everything else we have going on. These small groups allow a lot of work to get done that then staff can take and just bring to the finish to bring back and present to council, rather than having to do it all by themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rhino.
This is an interesting discussion today. At first I thought option one wasn't too bad, but then when I listened to what the warden has said, there's a lot of points in that. I mean, I listened to Councillor Perry, and he has a lot of good points with those. But if we did go with option one and with the thing, wouldn't it not be the same staff that would be involved or would be bringing the same reports? Could I have an answer on that one? I'm here seeing somebody shake their head, but I'm saying,
Yes, it would be.
so it would be the same staff. So I guess after hearing the discussion, I'm kind of tending to lean toward option number two, if it's going to be the same staff to do the same thing, because to me, in that way, there'd be a lot of redundancy, and would you be just doing this again? So, and again, I want to point out, this is why we sometimes are too quick to make motions before discussions happen. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to make the comment about staff, whether they're working with a smaller committee or it's the same staff, it's the same time commitment. And I don't think that they anticipate pushing this out months and months and months. That wasn't the impression that I had. But another concern that I have with option one is that it allows for 2 members of the development committee. And maybe it would be more or whatever, but you're not going to have a large number, whether it's 2 or whether it's 3 or whatever. And we have a very diverse development community in East Hants. And to get 2 members or 3 members is not necessarily going to be representative of the development community. It's going to be very difficult to get members who would represent that community at large, in my opinion, because it varies from community to community, area to area. And I just feel that staff would be able to engage with more developers if they were doing this under option 2 than to have a smaller committee and only engage with a limited number of the development community. Those are my comments. I'm still, I won't be supporting the motion because I simply think we can do this using option 2 and without bypassing our current public members of PAC by having this committee go directly to council, because I think they're invested in this as members of PAC as well. So I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's kind of funny. I was going to say exactly what the warden said, but I twisted it to a 3 councillor to be able to represent everybody. But my original thinking was, we have 11 councilors, we have 11 distinct districts, that every one of them have something to say about it, and I really agree with the second option. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, first, I'd just like to say, I wasn't quick to make this motion. I've thought about this long before this presentation was made, and I think it is a good recommended motion, but I'd like to hear more from staff as to why you recommended this instead of the second one.
Through Mr. Chair. So I wasn't the author of the report. That was John Woodford, the Director of Planning and Development. However, it likely would have been my recommendation as well if I had put this report forward, so I can speak from my perspective. In the past, we've had experience working with those smaller subcommittees, and it's been quite valuable to have that back and forth discussion and to be able to discuss things in quite in-depth ways. So I suspect that's some of the reasoning that John put forward when coming up with this recommended motion.
So I'm still going to support the motion. I value John's opinion on this, and I pretty well agree with everything Councillor Perry said for all those reasons why this is the better choice, but it'll be up to council to decide. That's it.
Thank you, Counselor. Is nobody wishing to speak, and it's moved in second? Questions being called. We'll go to the vote. This one. And the motion is passed with the vote of 6-5. With Councilors Musa, Rhino, Public Member Balcom, Senator Garden Cole, and Warden Rolston voting nay. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel, for stepping in for John. Last item on the PAC agenda is Heritage Incentive Program Policy. Rachel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So beginning in April 2016, heritage property owners were able to apply for a grant to cover 50% of the cost of improvements to their heritage property up to a maximum of $2,000. Eligible applicants are all owners of municipal registered heritage properties and all owners of properties located within the Maitland Heritage Conservation District. The following are not eligible for the grant, and that's government-owned properties, except where the property is leased to a registered non-profit society, which is partially or totally responsible for building maintenance. Properties within the Maitland Heritage Conservation District that were built in 1940 or later, and properties which are assessed entirely for commercial purposes, unless the property is owned by a registered not-for-profit society. So from 2016 to March 2023, a total of 31 heritage incentive grants have been provided. Just over 50% of the grants, which was 16, have been given to community groups, not-for-profit churches, and almost 60,000 has been provided to heritage property owners during this time period. The majority of the grants have been for worked properties in or nearby the community of Maitland, which is due to the large concentration of heritage properties in this area. So between 2016 and March 2023, grants have been awarded for the following. We had 8 grants for the repainting, 12 grants for repair on new roofing materials, 8 grants for windows, and there was 1 each for work to the foundations, headstone cleaning, and a professional study. So some photographs here are some of the work that's been supported through the grants. So, we have the new roof at the East Knoll Heritage Schoolhouse, the painting of the church in Lakelands, the painting of the Anglican Church in Maitland, and the painting of the Lower Selma Museum. As can be seen from the jurisdictional scan in the staff report, there is a bit more of a discussion in that staff report on the different municipalities that offer grants and more details on what those grants are. But just a summary here, HRM offers varying amounts up to $50,000 for properties in 2 of their conservation districts. And also they have $15,000 or $25,000 for other heritage properties. So those would be ones that are not located in those 2 heritage districts. Cape Breton Regional Municipality offers up to $12,000 or $6,000 for work related to the roof. And the District of Yarmouth offer a rebate which does not need to be matched, and it's up to $1,000 per year for 5 years. And further details of those programs are in the staff report, as I've already mentioned. So proposed amendments to the program, financial incentive amount. A financial incentive is a monetary benefit offered to encourage behavior or actions which otherwise would not take place. And except for the 2022-23 fiscal year, the Heritage Incentive Program has not maxed out the amount budgeted. All other years, there has been a remaining amount in the budget. Staff consider that $2,000 may not provide enough of an incentive to encourage owners to heritage properties to undertake maintenance work which they weren't already considering. The cost of maintaining all types of buildings has increased significantly since 2016, when the grant was introduced. And based on an assessment staff did from the Bank of Canada, it looks like it was around 23%. The cost of things have gone up since 2016. Maintaining heritage buildings can often be more expensive than non-heritage buildings due to the types of materials being used and the maintenance needs of those materials. So, for example, when you have wood siding, that wood needs to be painted and maintained more often than if you had vinyl siding. Financial incentive amount. Staff recommend that the amount be increased from $2,000 to $5,000 per property owner. If council approve this change, the draft budget for 2024 and 25 will include an increase from $12,000 to $30,000, and this will enable 6 grants at the maximum amount of $5,000. So right now in the budget, this current year is $12,000, and at $2,000 per property owner, that's 6 grants. At budget consideration time, council may decide not to increase the budget for this program, and any outcome of this report today doesn't prejudice that discussion at the budget time for council. So another proposed amendment to the program is regarding commercial buildings. The program currently excludes properties which are taxed entirely for commercial purposes. Commercial property owners experience the same challenges to maintaining their property as residential property owners, and staff recommend expanding the program to include these properties. The intent of the program is to improve their built heritage, and expanding the program to include commercial properties will increase the potential for this goal to be achieved. For example, the Freeze and Roy store in Maitland is one of the most prominent buildings in the community, but is currently ineligible. As can be noted from the jurisdictional scan, this is an approach that's been taken in HRM, Cape Breton Regional Municipality, and the District of Yarmouth. They all offer grants to commercial property owners. And actually in HRM, the Heritage Property Program offers $25,000 to commercial property owners compared to $15,000 for residential property owners. So an alternative is that Planning Advisory Committee, acting as Heritage Advisory Committee, could decide to recommend approval to either the increase in the amount of the grant offered up to $5,000 or enable the inclusion of commercial properties into the program. And a second alternative is to continue with the status quo and not amend the current program. And the recommendation is that changes be made to the Heritage Incentive Program to increase the maximum amount of grant from $2,000 to $5,000, and also to enable commercial properties to be eligible. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. Councilor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, my first question is, through you to staff, what precipitated the review of this policy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a good thing to review things, policies and bylaws every few years, just to see if they're kind of keeping up with changes in circumstances and legislation and such like. But it's also been on our mind that we don't have enough uptake to max the program out every year. So it's not, we're finding that it's not necessarily changes people's behavior. You know, people who may be kind of on the fence about getting work done to their property. I don't know if the money that's offered right now is catching those people. So the thought is that if it increases to 5,000, it might encourage those property owners who may be kind of thinking about some work, but aren't necessary to make that decision. It might push them into making those changes to their property.
So I guess what I'm hearing is you're not liking the looks. Somebody is not liking the looks of the Heritage Village or Heritage properties that are there now. Would that be a correct assumption?
No, that's not our takeaway. It's really is to encourage property owners to, you know, that program's there to encourage property owners to maintain their property, and staff don't feel that amount that's currently offered is necessarily encouraging people outside of those who ordinarily apply for the grant program. It's not specifically related to the condition of buildings right now. It's just to try and encourage people to maintain their property.
I guess I'm not going to get an answer really of what really precipitated this, but I'd just like to say I'm not against heritage in any way. I think a lot of it, I appreciate it and things like that. But I have no surprise. I have never been a fan of this policy. I don't have a problem with nonprofits partaking in a policy such as this to upkeep their heritage building. But when you get into private residences and you start going into commercial buildings that people live in, you're not treating the rest of the people in the area the same, because you're not offering the same incentive to keep their buildings up is like we do with an historic building. So to me, it's not treating everybody with being fair with everybody. There's windows that have to be replaced. There's different things with the newer homes that this policy is not available for. And you know, when you're not treating everybody equally, I think it's very unfair. And like I said, nonprofits, I don't have a problem with this at all. But I do for businesses, and I do for privately owned residences. That a lot of people, like I say, I've been a resident of Maitland for years and years and years, and I've seen these older buildings turn over and turn over and turn over in ownership. And by that turnover in ownership, you know, one has to realize that along with buying these older homes, there will be upkeep with them. So, you know, we're not treating everybody the same in my eyes, and I really. But I can understand the need, like I say, $2,000 doesn't go a long ways now, but I can't agree with the concept of which it is put forth here. You know, and I'll be quite honest with you, you don't know how many phone calls that I've got, and I've never brought it forth to staff about people in heritage homes not mowing their lawns. That has been, I've got numerous phone calls about that, and then numerous complaints about it. I haven't brought it forward. So, you know, I just can't agree with the policy. I never have, because I think it's quite unequal treatment to everybody in the area. Thank you for my thoughts.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Perry.
Thank you. $2,000 to $5,000 doesn't seem like that big of an increase, but I do agree with Councilor Rhino that, you know, it does kind of create a double standard in the communities, because there's only, correct me if I'm wrong, there's only 2 heritage districts in East Hants?
3, Mr. Chair. There's actually one heritage conservation district, which is Maitland, but there are a number of individual registered heritage properties. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I think it's around 30 properties that are individually registered.
Okay, and this is all funded from, what's the funding source for this program?
General tax rates.
General tax rates?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely kind of like perks my head up when I see us, possibly helping subsidize commercial businesses as well as as private homes. The nonprofits that are throughout the whole community, absolutely. I would even see that increasing for any nonprofit heritage building that wanted to be maintained. It's just a little concerning that, there's a lot of other buildings that need upkeep that are just as vital in a lot of our communities that don't qualify as a heritage building and can't receive anything and don't meet the funding requirements for the other grants we have. So it's just interesting. But I do appreciate staff bringing forward this report, because it is important to constantly monitor and review our policies as time goes on, to ensure that they're not outdated and we're not falling too far behind, especially a policy like this that wouldn't really be brought up any other time than during a policy review. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I just, point of clarification with regards to this program? So the program only provides funding for the outside of the buildings. So when protecting a heritage building, it's about the outside of the building. Insides are not protected under the Heritage Property Act. So this program allows for the protection of that outside envelope of the building, the built heritage. So it is very specific as to what the grant money, the incentive grant money can go towards improvements on. I just wanted to mention that if it wasn't clear in my presentation.
Thank you, Rachel. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Through you to staff and to council. Well, a couple of thoughts. We have one Heritage Conservation District, which is Maitland, the Maitland Heritage Conservation District. And we do promote that as a, in tourism and as something that we market in East Hants. And there's an expectation that those old ship captains' homes and things like that are kept looking on the outside, as depending on the architectural style, and, that they're very limited. If they need to replace windows or they need to do something or even build a piece on, they have to meet much stricter standards than anyone else does. Now, in the Heritage Conservation District, there is an option. They can apply to council to be removed from the register, and we're able to do that. And then they can put vinyl siding on their house if they want to. And when this was first brought in, it was kind of to discourage things like that. It was to encourage homeowners to remain in the Heritage Conservation District and enable them to maybe be able to afford the little bit extra to put the right kind of windows and the right type of cladding and that on them to maintain the integrity and the look of that heritage area, because we're very fortunate. There are some beautiful homes along the shore, and particularly in Maitland. Now, that's in the Heritage Conservation District of Maitland. I don't feel it's fair to put it on the backs of homeowners there. And they do have an option, and we could lose our character of that community very quickly. And a lot of those homes do change hands, but some of them don't. Some of them still belong to the families that built them generations ago. And the other heritage properties in the municipality are scattered throughout the municipality. And they're a little different because they do not have the option of removing themselves from the heritage register. If you have a heritage property, be it a nonprofit, a home, a business, or whatever it is, and it's not located within the Heritage Conservation District, once you've got that plaque tacked on the wall and it's a municipal heritage property, we do not have the ability to remove it from the register under provincial law. That was shocking to me because I had a church in my area who became a heritage property, discovered it increased their insurance to the point that it was causing them issues, and we discovered that we couldn't remove them, that there is no avenue to do that. So I have a great deal of empathy for folks who own and maintain these old heritage buildings. I love to drive through the village of Maitland myself. I love to drive through other areas that have beautiful old homes in the municipality. And I just think that the investment to preserve the character of these communities is valuable. It's valuable from a tourism perspective. And no, I guess, you can say you're not treating everybody the same, but we're not imposing the same restrictions and regulations on how people can upgrade their homes on folks that don't have heritage status. And many of these folks don't have the option to remove the home from heritage status. And those that do we really want to see all those old ship captains' homes in Maitland have metal colored roofs and vinyl siding and, and patio doors and, I just think we risk a lot. And I mean, I know some folks that live there that really want to replace their windows or have replaced them actually to save on heating costs and that. And they wouldn't have been able to do it as quickly as they did without the assistance of the Heritage Grant. But the windows were replaced, they were replaced quicker, the home maintained the same look it had always had. So I understand what's being said, but at the same time, I guess I put a fair bit of value on the aesthetics and the appearance and the whole heritage aspect of the properties in our municipality who meet that criteria. And I would just hate to lose that. So I certainly supported putting the program in place when it came in place, and I'd be prepared to support an increase in it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councilor Jordan Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. So can you give me like an example of a heritage 100% commercial property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the only one I can think of off the top of my head is the Freeze and Roy in Maitland, the general store.
Yes, I was thinking of that as well. So like not the Tinsmith in Shubenacadie.
That's a
Museum.
yeah. And would that be a non-profit? Oh, okay, we own the building, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's, there's
I don't
very
know what
few.
that's, whether that's commercially assessed or, do you know? Because that's what the
Well, that's okay. I was just thinking of that one as well, but I was just trying to gauge in my mind how many of these buildings we're talking about and yeah.
So
Okay.
I should have had that information for committee. I apologize for not having the number of commercial properties.
It's no problem. I was just kind of getting a visual of what you're referring to with a heritage 100% commercial property. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Nobody else wishes to speak, and there's no motion coming forward at this time. There'll be a later policy meeting.
No, we have to make the motion to that.
Okay. Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, after hearing the warden's comments, I'm prepared to move that the Planning and Advisory Committee, acting as Heritage Advisory Committee, recommend to council that council give notice of intent to approve the amendments of the Heritage Incentive Program policy as outlined in the staff report dated November 8th, 2023.
Seconded.
Moved in second. Nobody wishing to speak. What is your wish?
Question.
Questions being called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed with Councilor Rhino voting nay. That concludes the planning advisory for today. I want to thank staff for the reports and for answering all the questions that they could answer, and looking for a motion to adjourn to go into Parks, Recreation, and Culture with Council Rhino as chair. Moved in second. All those in favor? Contrary minded? We are adjourned, moving into Park, Rec, and Culture. I give Council Rhino time to get ready.
First order of business is approval of the minutes of October 17th, 2023. What is your wish? Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary of mind? Motion is carried. Next order of business would be not-for-profit insurance grant update. Joe, you'll be taking that.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The not-for-profit insurance grant is our new grant that launched in April. And this is just an update on the uptake and the use of the grant. It's been quite successful. We've had 18 applications requesting over $18,000 in the first 6 months or so, 7 months of the program. And given the uptake that we are definitely going to look to see if we can have some more funding for the balance of this year, in addition to acknowledging that we'll probably be adjusting the budget as part of budget discussions for 2024, 2025. So I'll just scroll down to the background and then we'll go back up after. So I think everyone remembers back in the spring, we came through with this grant program specifically because of the volume of community grant that was being used specifically for insurance. And we were just not using community grant for the other programs that it was originally targeted for. So the grant has been quite popular that way. We rolled it out as expected and the community has certainly taken it up. One of the cool things about this grant is it's really opened the door for some organizations that maybe didn't understand some of the other ways we can help. I've had a lot of really great conversations with groups about, using both the community grant and the not-for-profit insurance grant to maximize what we can be doing for these small groups. We've also had several discussions about insurance in general, because a lot of groups maybe didn't understand that they should have directors and officers. If I say I was going to run a program talking about insurance, no one would come to my session. But when we're talking about a grant, it's a real education piece that has come in quite handy, I believe. Like a lot of groups are learning a lot about insurance. And that is a good sign for us because we want our groups to be covered in case of emergency. And we're certainly learning more and more natural disasters and things like that. We want our groups to have appropriate insurance. So we have a list here of some groups that have, the groups that have received the funding so far. We've also approved some funding in principle. So they've sent us what we've asked for, but we're waiting for an updated policy renewal. So if a group applied in April or in August, for example, but their renewal isn't till December, they don't have their current renewal policy fees. So we're going to put it in as what they think their insurance is going to be. And then once we receive it, then we would release it. So we have a couple groups like that that have been approved in principle. The grant is a first come, first funded. So based on policy, staff can process and pay out these grants. And we're sitting right now, I have the Mount Uniacke Community Improvement Committee has been approved, $866, but there's only about $500 in the grant budget right now. So I can either release them their $500 and they don't get their full amount they qualify for, or we can come back and say, maybe we can increase the budget for the balance of this year using reserves. So that takes me down to the financial consideration, again, that we just need some more cash in this pilot year. It's being funded through reserve right now. Going into the budget year, we'll make plans for more. Right now, there's around $85,000 in GenGov Reserve, which was financing this program this year. So that money is still available if we want to go there. Under alternatives, we also mentioned that the community grant is undersubscribed at the moment. There is just under 12,000 currently in community grant. So council could decide to use some of the surplus or the undersubscribed part of that grant to balance this one. Or you could choose a different amount. Again, or you could say, no, we're going to try that. This is our pilot and we'll discuss the rest at budget, and any applications that come in for the balance of this fiscal would just be pushed forward until April. So those are the alternatives, and the recommended motion is asking for or recommending that we have $9,500 from GenGov Reserve to further fund insurance grants for the balance of this fiscal year.
Thank you, Joe, for that report. I'll open the floor for comment or question. And the first up would be Warden Wilson.
Thank you. I'm going to move that Parks, Rec, and Culture Committee recommend to council that $9,500 from General Government Reserve be added to the not-for-profit insurance grant program to meet the demand of this new grant program in 2023-2024.
Okay, moved and seconded. On before the motion, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just looking at the organizations that are at the bottom of your chart, the Chart Society and the Shumeney Community Development Association, would they be eligible for some grant money with the $9,500?
Through the chair, yes, as long as we, the Chart Society has some missing documentation. But once we sort it out with them, we are hoping to fund them. That would be included. These two would be kind of next in line for the funding. And then the Shubenacadie Development Association, that application just came in the last couple of weeks. And absolutely, those two groups and the balance of the Mount Uniacke Community Improvement Group would be the first three that would get that funding. And then we would go on down through later applications.
1,500 is the maximum.
1,500 is the maximum for this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
At all? Anyone else wish to weigh in on this before the motion? Seeing no one else and the question being called, go to the vote. The vote is in and is passed unanimously. Okay. Thank you, Joe. Next order of business would Meadowview Way Open Space Secondary Entrance Exit. Evan McDougal, you'll be taking that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. In December 2022, staff brought forward a report recommending that PID 45354677 in Meadowview Way be deemed surplus so that a road connection could be built over that parcel in the future. The rest of the property would have been sold off at that time, and the funds would have been put in the open space fund. Some of the neighboring property owners raised objections to this, and the recommendation didn't move forward. At that time, staff committed to come back to council regarding the secondary access into the proposed development. And this also aligns with the council motion C-23-210 regarding secondary access, which came about after the wildfires this summer. In this report, staff is recommending that we only recommend that the land required for the road connection be deemed surplus, and the rest would remain as open space. So approximately 1,050 square meters would be deemed surplus, and the remaining 15,750 would remain as open space. Staff are still of the belief that the secondary access is beneficial to the community as a whole, both the current resident homeowners and the future residents of the proposed development. The future connection would, and when the proposed development is developed out, would service the secondary access would service up to 35 homes, which could be extremely important in emergency situations. It would provide better conductivity for municipal operations such as snow clearing and waste collection. And from a PRC perspective, the road connection would provide year-round opportunity for walking, which is used extensively. The roads in this area are used extensively for walkers and cyclists. It also creates a better connection to the Royal Oaks Park, allows individuals to move from Meadowview over into the park. If council gives us direction for this, we would actually move forward with the surplus notification, same as we did last time, the 300 meters to the residents. And it would come back for ratification at a later date. It wouldn't actually be next week, because there's time that we would require to put all that in place. For all these reasons, staff is recommending that council proceed with the open space surplus property disposal for the parcel of land required for the road, allowing for the construction of the road on the subdivided parcel and the transfer over to the municipality.
That's your presentation? All right. After the presentation, first, I have a number of people who've asked to speak on this. First up, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Could we go back down to the map? No, keep going. Okay, so the subject property is that little green strip? How, I don't quite understand how there's gonna be a secondary road going anywhere built in that little green strip.
It basically goes from the brown strip out to Meadowview Drive. It's only 50 meters. It's just, there's a future subdivision going to be on the brown part.
Oh, okay, so it's not now I'm,
Go up to the top.
Yeah, I'm gonna go up to the other one probably would help. Okay.
yeah. I'm confused.
So it would be.
The first part of that road.
Yeah.
So just, Alana, just outline the whole long triangle that is the subject property.
So the subject property is sort of following my cursor.
No, keep going.
Oh, sorry, keep going right over. It's this whole extension. And from the previous preliminary or proposed plan, it's just this section of road that would be required for secondary access.
So that road's not there now, that's?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now my next question is, I understand that we can't just take this land and use it for secondary road access because it's open space and we don't have the authority to change it. But if we declare it surplus, how do we determine, anybody could buy it, and they might not build a road on it. Do we have some way of building into the declaration that it has to have a road built on?
I'll run the mics, okay? Play this back and forth game, and we'll just leave it.
All right. So basically, working with legal, the way that we would accomplish this is would deem it surplus. When that subdivision is built out and the road's connection is required, we would actually put an RFP out to construct that section of road. And as part of the RFP, the winning company would actually purchase that little section of land for a set price. We would set the price for that based on assessment. And then when the road is completed, they would sell us back the land and the completed road for whatever the bid price was for the RFP. If that makes sense.
So we have the authority to require anyone who purchased that land to use it to build a road.
Yes.
For the subdivided section.
So we aren't in any danger of
No.
Citizen Q buying that piece of land and thinking, it's just a nice little place to go and relax in the great outdoors. I'm not going to do anything with it.
No.
That was my concerns, thank you. And the remainder of the land would remain as it is today.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Next up, Kurt Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, do you already know who wants to purchase this land? Is this already something that, this isn't just getting pulled out of thin air, right?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There's no one that wants to purchase it. Staff believe that it's important for the development to have that connection, a secondary connection, and it meets some needs of PRC, what we feel for connectivity. So no one actually wants to purchase it. The developer isn't required to have that secondary access. We can make the developer develop up to our property line of that open space, and then we'd connect it through to Meadowview to provide the secondary access to that new subdivision.
Okay, so I'm looking at this and I know the area well. I've got people who live in there. And I can't make sense of this, like where it is. When you turn on to Meadowview, can you show me that bottom street? What is that street with the three little words?
Does it make sense to go to the other? That's Ridgewood Court.
No, the straight line on the bottom? So what is the road with the cul-de-sac at the end?
That's not developed yet. That's a future proposed. So we're
Okay,
just planning
let's scroll-
ahead to have a
Okay,
connection.
let's scroll down to the other one. Thank you.
So bid 45333333 through the chair. That is the proposed parcel for development. There's nothing there at this time. The road that shows on the other parcel, there's the cul-de-sac here. It would go over, and then as to Evan's point, we could have the developer build the road to just where that line under the PID is. And then the subdivided parcel would be a small portion of the open space parcel. And then the road that would then have to be built would be just here. And then a vast majority of the open space, once subdivided, would still remain open space. It would just be a small portion of it that would be surplus property. And we wouldn't put that out expression of interest that anyone can do anything with it. It would be very specific expression of interest or RFP where we would say, this is for sale with the intent to build a portion of land connecting to the land or the road as part of 453333.
So, okay, so there's a developer who wants to put a subdivision on the Brown. He's going in off the Garden Road.
He's going in off the Ridgewood
Pardon?
Court. Yeah, so he's going in off this section here, it's Ridgewood Court, and then it comes up, there would be a cul-de-sac.
Okay, so Ridgewood Court ends in the playground? Ends in a cul-de-sac?
At Royal Lake Oaks.
Okay, but at that cul-de-sac, there's.
Sorry, the cul-de-sac I speak of is on the proposed plan almost directly where the 453 is.
Okay, so I'm talking about the existing one, right
here.
there.
Yep.
So there's a little walkway right now to the playground?
Directly there.
Right.
Yep.
So there would be no connection between that and the subdivision. I'm trying to see where all this connectivity is going to happen, like,
Through the chair, I believe the connectivity that Evan speaks of is from the roadway section down through this proposed development and then down to Ridgewood Court is the connectivity he speaks of. So essentially, you could come from over here, sidewalk, side of road, whatever, walk down through this subdivision and down into Royal Oaks and beyond.
okay, thank you.
Because there's no actual connectivity right now, trail-wise or roadway, because this is not developed.
I see, okay, thanks.
Any more further questions right now?
No, thank you.
Next up, Councillor Timmons.
Through the chair, I find the diagrams a little confusing as well, but I can see where you're trying to get a second exit and entrance there. And I know I acknowledge your listed reasons for doing it. If it was just for the emergency and risks point of view, I think we'd be negligent not to look at doing this. So I'm going to move that Parks, Recreation and Culture Committee recommend to council to declare surplus the section of PID 353-54677 required for the future public road between Meadowview Way and the proposed development on PID 453-33333.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Spirit. On before the motion, and on my list is going on that too. Councillor Mitchell.
Mr. Chair, going back to the preliminary plan, is there any access to that property now, the Brown? Any road access from Meadowview or Royal Oaks?
Could you repeat that question, Councilor Mitchell?
The Brown that was on there, is there access to get to
no access
that
currently.
now?
Oh, the other picture. He's asking.
Can you access the Brown from any roadway is my question.
Yes, you can access it from Ridgewood. That's how they're getting into their subdivision now. But their primary access, we're trying to provide a secondary access.
Okay. Going out to Meadowview.
Yes.
That little brown thing, is that just a pathway? Right there?
That's just a road that goes out to Garden Road. Like, there's no road there. It's just a piece of the property that goes out there.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Next up, Councillor McPhee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm still confused with some of this. I know the piece of property fairly well. But in it says here, the developer of the proposed adjacent development, which I take it is 33333, may choose to bid on the RFP for the surplus parcel and road construction, but they are not required to move forward with this process if approved. Could you explain that?
That they'll have the ability to be the people that build the road, but they don't not required to build the road across the Meadowview. They can stop their road right at the property line at the end of where the green parcel starts.
So they could bid on this surplus property, which we hope to build a road on. They could buy that property and then stop us from building a road on it.
No, the RFP requires that's going to be issued as part of the RFP. You're required to build the road.
But how come you have it here, but they are not required to move forward with this process?
They wouldn't be required to build the road themselves. Like in some developments, they'd be required to build a certain section of road. In this one, they're not required to. Like it's as of right, so only required to build the road to the property line.
So they could says here, they could bid on the RFP, actually get the surplus property, and you're just telling me they're not required to build a road on it?
Two different things there. The RFP is only to build the road on the green section.
Absolutely, I understand that.
So the statement there is that they're not required to build the road past the brown section. As it stands right now, it's as of right. In our preliminary discussions, they would be required to build the road to the beginning of the green property.
Yep.
If they choose to bid on an RFP because they're already going to be building the rest of the road,
Yeah.
they could.
Mm-hmm.
At part of that RFP would be a contract where they're required to build the road and turn it over to the municipality, the rest of the road,
Yeah.
the 50-meter long section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that. Then why is this in here, but they're not required to move forward with the process if approved? What does that specifically move? What do they not have to move forward with?
They're not required to bid on the green section.
Wow, I'd reword that. That's not very clear to me, but anyway. Okay, so now I understand the rest of it. So if we put the parcel up for sale, a surplus, does the municipality buy it so that we can put it up for this RFP? I'm still missing the process here.
Yeah.
You want to take that? Well, who's taking this? All right, just hold it on here. I get these.
only have 3 on them.
I know.
I touched the button. Through the chair, for that particular piece, in order for that subdivided section not to be considered open space, it actually has to change ownership.
Right.
So currently, as an open space parcel, it is under the municipality of East Hants. But if that subdivided section is to go forward, and this is via legal, and not be considered open space, it has to change ownership. So it has to go out of municipal ownership. That's why we would put out the RFP to sell the land and/or indicate that selling the land, you have to build the road. So that's that particular piece.
So that's, okay, so we're ensuring that whoever buys that parcel of land has to build.
Absolutely,
A
yes,
road
yeah.
on
Through the
it.
chair, it would be worded such that this section of land is for sale for this amount of money on the condition that you build this road, and then it is sold back to the municipality for
Right.
whatever
yeah.
that amount would be. Yeah.
So how do we do that if the person that owns 3333 doesn't have to move forward then to build the road out to that? Or I still don't, I'm not getting this part of the.
Through the chair, in
sentence
the negotiations with the developer for just the Brown parcel,
Yes.
that PID, those negotiations would stipulate that if we were to move forward with this subdivision piece,
Yes.
we would ensure that the connectivity was right up to the two property lines, directly where we would then have on the subdivided portion the road. So through the agreement with that developer, we would ensure that the road goes up to the property lines, and then we would go forward
then
with
we
the,
would-
yeah.
Yeah, build the, or
It,
whoever.
you know, through the chair, it is definitely a confusing process. This is new. And the rationale for bringing this back was from the previous discussion where adjacent landowners were concerned about the surplus of that open space parcel. We committed to coming back with an alternative, and it's, or other options. It's definitely been a lot of back and forth with legal, because this is certainly unprecedented for us to look at an option like this.
Anything further, Councillor McPhee?
No, I guess not.
Okay,
Still don't like that, that line in there, but anyway.
all right. Are you sure you don't? Okay,
Yeah.
for now. All right, next up would be Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question, this road will be paved or unpaved?
To be determined? Paid or unpaid? Through,
Just, now, remember I said, I'll run the thing, okay?
It doesn't, through you, Mr. Chair, it doesn't currently have to be paved, but it could change in the future where it is paved, which would want to have the same paved road. If it's paved road in the development, we don't want to have paved road out to Meadowview. And this price was put in as paved. It'd be significantly cheaper if the development comes through right now where they're required to have just a gravel road.
Counselor Moosey, you still have the floor.
So we're gonna, the way I understood it, we're gonna sell him the property, or he's gonna bid for the project, right? And we're gonna buy it back from him for the cost of the road.
All right, just who's taking this?
I will, Mr. Chair. Yes.
Whoever buy it.
Yeah, whoever buys it, yes. I just wanted to ensure, yes, that is the process, but it would not necessarily be the developer of the adjacent pit.
So why wouldn't we do it ourselves?
Yep, so through the chair, it has to switch ownership. So we have to transfer ownership of the parcel to someone else in order for that open space designation to come off, and then a road could be then built on that parcel.
And any idea how much the cost is gonna be?
Cost.
Mr. Chair, for gravel road in the legal, under $50,000, if it's gravel road in the legal work required to do it all.
Okay, 150,000. Under 50? I know it's a good idea, but there are a lot of subdivisions that need connectivity that have houses already on it, and we're not looking at them. So to look at something that is not developed yet, I have a hard time to agree on it. For this reason, I cannot do it, because I can tell you about hundreds of subdivisions that have hundreds of homes on them, and they have one access. So if we were gonna open that road on us, how can I tell my people that I could not give you access to the trailer park that have 300 homes, and I'm doing this I'm doing it as an option here, so I cannot agree on that. Thank you.
That all, Counselor Moosey? Next up, Counselor Gold.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How does this option differ from the one that was brought to us in 2022? Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the original discussion when we brought it forward was a surplus disposal for the entire parcel versus just a subdivided section, or a larger portion of the subdivision, sorry.
So once that road is made, who's responsible for maintaining it? Pardon?
Through the chair, it would, if it was turned back over, then the municipality would assume responsibility of that road, section of road.
And how many lots would potentially be on that?
15. Through the chair, 15.
15 potential lots. So I can't reckon how 15 lots would be, why we'd be pushing for a second exit with only 15 lots. Okay, that's it for me, thanks.
Thank you. But if that little road was there, it would also provide access from all the other roads to the north of that, for all the homes there, a secondary exit point if it was needed. It's not just the 15 new lots, it's all the lots in there currently would now have access to another entrance or exit. And I understand what folks are saying, but we do have a motion on the books to try and look at all our subdivisions and try and figure out how we can, if we can get secondary entrances and exits from them, because I don't know, I don't want to be in the position that they were, last year with wildfires and that. If there's something that we can do as we develop going forward that would protect us and protect people from that, then I think we should do it. And I also think when we get the report back of all of the other subdivisions that are currently in that situation, that if there's something we can do about it, then we should do it. And those are my comments, but my question is I don't know why the developer would want to buy that and build a road and sell it back to us. I'm not too sure about that, but my question is, could we not sell that little piece of land to the water utility? And they could own it, and then it would change ownership. And then we could build a road on it. Why couldn't we do that? The water utility is a separate entity. It's not us. Okay, it was a thought. All right, let's see. Who else could we sell it to? There must be some way that we could do it without having to depend on the whim of a developer as to whether he wanted to build this little piece of road or not. I know it's different than things we've done in the past, but I just think it's, if there's some way we can do it to provide entrance and exit for all of those lots up there, plus the new lots, and increase, you know, connectivity, even from, you know, I don't know, from the lots further back and that, I just think it's, could be a good thing to do. Thank you.
Next up, Councilor Parrish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking in support of the motion, yeah, this is, you know, originally, when this came forward in 2022, people around the table here, we didn't approve this connectivity because we didn't value it. Now, after the events of the wildfires, we definitely value connectivity throughout our neighborhoods. And this is a situation where we have the opportunity because we own the parcel of land that's needed. For a lot of the other connectivities that are probably going to come back in this report that are going to be needed in subdivisions, we don't own any of the land, so we can't do anything about it. And I just believe if we have the ability to increase connectivity, because all the people who live on that road that goes out to the Royal Oaks Playground benefit from it, everybody from the backside of the other road does as well as the new development. It just provides people options. And we, at this time, we have the capability to make this happen, to provide that connectivity, provide that secondary entrance or exit for safety and security. And those are the types of opportunities we have to take advantage of. For a lot of the existing subdivisions, everything around it, we don't own any of the land, right? And we don't have the ability to do things like this, but we do have the ability to do it here. So to me, personally, it's a no-brainer. However it comes to happen, the RFP process will take care of that. Somebody's going to make money. It will happen. It doesn't have to be a developer. It can be anybody else. So depending upon how, I'm not really worried about that aspect of it. It's just, I honestly believe that it will be beneficial for that whole residential neighborhood for that to happen, because now it makes it an easier walk for everybody on that North Road to get to the playground, the new subdivision. It just makes sense in that regard. And originally it was the entire open space was going to go away, and then that area was going to be filled in with possibly homes. And that was what the most residents were opposed to. They didn't want houses directly across from them. They wanted to keep their little green belt that looked across that. And I believe this achieves both those objectives and is a great compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So far it's been described as a no-brainer and also negligent if we didn't do it. I just want to point out to councillors that there's another way out. The subdivision comes right around. It's a paved way out, a big street. So this is providing a third dairy access. There's a secondary, not for the 15 lots that are proposed, not for the 15 lots that are proposed. But for all the rest of the subdivision, there's currently two ways out. So, you know, I'm definitely aware of wanting to have two exits for 100 and more for residents, given what we've gone through, and two exits are provided on that road. This is referring to the 15 homes that would be built there. Thank you.
I 100% agree with Councilor Garden Cole. I see a lot of roads here. Like, there's nothing, like, to bring the fire thing like that, to push that that fire that happened into this, that had nothing to do with it, because we had a subdivision of 400 homes, and already after the development agreement, after 100, we have to have another exit. And we didn't even push the developer to do it until I mentioned it. So I don't know how staff is working here, but I don't agree with most stuff. Like, there's stuff to be looked at equally in the whole municipality. That's my point. Because there's no homes yet over there, and we have mentioned in so many subdivisions that have homes on it, and they're in dangers, and nothing have been done. And we don't even go after the developer to do it until somebody have to push it. So we should start to look at the whole area of the municipality, not just one area. Thank you.
Yes. Next up, Councilor Perry.
Thank you. I understand there's the 15 homes in the current development, but there's the large cul-de-sac that goes up to Royal Oaks. Every single one of those homes only has one way in and one way out, which is over 20 some odd. Is it over 20 some odd? I just did a rough count.
19.
19. So we're looking at over almost 50 homes now, right? 19 and 15 or 8 or 35, whatever it is. So it also affects those other 19 homes that are currently there, as well as the new development. So it's not just that one new development. It's not doing it for the new development. It's also the existing road as well. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no one left, I'm going to turn the chair over to the warden. I have a few questions, if you may. Okay. Number one, first question. 33333. I take it that's Garden Road. Why isn't there an entrance and exit onto Garden Road? Is that not big enough for an entrance and an exit? And I guess that's my first question.
For you, Mr. Chair, it's not. It's only 20 feet wide. It's just a driveway.
So it's a no-go on that?
Not even close.
All right. So if this went, my second one, if this went, how many homes will be in that whole thing that could use a second exit? With the proposed development, with Royal Oaks and with the other one?
34, I think, is the.
34 in total?
Well, depending on how the actual, we only have preliminary development proposal.
Yeah.
So what is as preliminary plus about 19 current homes, 34. 15 plus 19.
Okay, then. Question just come up here, and I'd like it clarified. I was told there was a third exit, which would happen for all these 34 residences. Is that correct?
I would have to disagree for the 34 homes. There's
You'd
no
have to
third.
disagree, but
Yeah,
there
there's
would-
only one. There will only be one exit if we don't put the secondary exit in.
Okay, my question is, would the developer of this proposed subdivision in here, would he be the benefactor of this second exit, or who?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think it matters to him either way.
Doesn't matter to him either way.
This was originally, we looked at this originally as a walkway, and we've seen extra benefits for making it a road connection. Like, we were gonna put a connection there for a walkway, then we see the benefits of emergency access before the fires. This was all the original report. Connectivity for our waste collection and snow clearing, and then we all will have the connectivity where people walk on these roads anyways, so they're just gonna walk on the roads anyways. So for a slight cost more of construction costs, we can make this more beneficial to the whole community for other reasons, not just emergency access.
I guess my question then, who are these people that are crying out for it? Because at the meeting I was to, and unlike, I know Councillor Perry talked about it, I didn't hear those yays, let's go ahead and do this. What I heard was the people that were there did not want a road connectivity to that other subdivision. So what's changed? You're running it now.
Oh,
Through you, Madam Chair. I think what we heard at the meeting was the folks didn't want to lose their green space, and in particular, there's a pond on that green space that many of them spoke about. So when we committed at that meeting to come back with an option to just take maybe a top part, which was one of the, I don't know if it wasn't a recommendation of council, but councilors were speaking of, could we just take this little top part and get the road? So that's what we've done. So it would keep the main part of the green space that the folks at the meeting were concerned about, which was the pond and the larger piece on Meadowview Way.
Well, I guess my opinion of what I heard is different from the other two, but I think we're forgetting the main thing. Have we gone out to some of these people and discussed this new process, or will that be part of the plan going forward in a public hearing, or what? Can somebody answer that?
Through you, Madam Chair, that would be part of a public hearing for the disposal of surplus property or open space property.
Okay, hearing what everybody said, and if this road goes through, it's going to give an extra exit for 34 people. Well, nothing to take away from those 34 people, but I just heard a counselor around here saying they've got, and I know that there's other counselors here that have subdivisions with over 100 homes in them, and we're not putting, we haven't got into that second exit for them. Why are we looking, I guess, to me, we're singling out 34 and forgetting the ones that have 100 and some greater out there that have that. I guess that's where I'm leaning. Actually, I don't hear I hear a little bit of change, but I'm not being swayed from what my decision was the last time. I think, 34 homes, I thought the way we're talking, there would be close to 99 or over 100 homes, but 34, that kind of baffles me, so. Anyway, those are my opinions. Thank you. Back to me. Councillor Mooser and Councillor, no, you've taken it off? Councillor Mooser, you wish to speak? Okay, Warden? Wait till I take the CEO off. There you go.
Thank you. I guess I look at it differently. I mean, I recognize there are lots of places that, with hundreds of homes, that need other access points. To not give an access point to 30 homes or 40 homes or 50 homes because we can't give it to 100 somewhere else doesn't seem reasonable to me. I just feel that we should do what we can do where we can do it and look for ways to do it in other places. If we don't own any land and we can't make it happen in some of those other subdivisions, we look for options and land, I think it's going to be a long process. It's not going to happen overnight. But to say we're not going to give another access to these homes because we can't give it to more homes somewhere else, that just perpetuates the problem that we have now. And I know maybe it's only 34 homes that it makes the secondary access to, but there are far more than 34 homes that could access it, and perhaps in a more timely manner if they want it to get out quickly than going all the way up around, depending on where the emergency or where the fire was. It's not that it's only going to be 34 homes that can use this. There'll be more than 34 homes that can use it. I just see great value in it. I see great value in beginning to plan our subdivisions and plan our communities with as much access to entrances and exits as we can. It's a learning curve for us to think that way, I guess. But I think we can't fix what we've done in the past in all cases. But by God, we can do a better job going forward. And I'm sorry, that's what I think we should be doing, and not just in this particular case. I think that's the lens that we should be looking through as we develop the municipality out everywhere going forward. I just think it's a lens we should look through. So for those reasons, I'm going to be supporting the motion, and I'll be supporting motions while ever I'm here that are affordable and provide safe entrance and exit options for new subdivisions, old subdivisions, and make it easier for emergency services to access places, because I think that times have changed. As a former CAO used to say, that the water on the beans has changed, or something along that line. And like I said, we can't fix what's already done in many cases, or it'd be very difficult to fix, but by God, we can stop making the same mistakes over and over again. Thank you.
Edit Ward? Councillor McPhee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm not against whether it's 34 people that get the secondary access or 300. Nice to have another way out. I've wondered all along with the alternatives why we can't go with alternative 2 of just expropriate the land, move forward with the road construction. That seems to me be the cleanest, easiest. It gets what we really want done, which is just take that little bit of land and build a road on it, which all of us probably think we should be able to do, but we're not allowed to do. So how come we don't consider doing that?
Who's taking that answer? CAO, are you taking that answer?
So I do have the legal opinion on that. There is, I mean, it's something you could possibly do. There's no precedent for doing it, and it could get expensive as far as doing that. I guess there were just too many unknowns about that option to recommend it as the option. But as this goes forward, that may come back around as being one of the options as we go through the process if this goes through.
Seems in some ways that would be the cleanest way to do it, but I know where you're trying to set a legal precedent that could be problematic, yes.
Any further?
No, that's fine, thanks.
All right, Councillor Gordon Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, you mean the small narrow land going from the Garden Road? Expropriate land to make that accessible?
To expropriate land from ourselves,
Oh,
to change it from open space.
okay, okay. So from the brown section through to the road, not sure what the name of it is, that has the cul-de-sac at the end. So that's wide enough for a road right now. They have enough property to put a road in there?
Yes. Through you.
So that's their first option. This doesn't go through, that's their roadway through onto that street? That's their proposed access to their property?
Yes.
I see. Okay, thank
That
you.
it, Councillor?
Yes.
Councillor Musa?
Thank you. So the road inside that subdivision is gonna be municipal road? Okay, so if the developer get it to the end, like we said, to the green space, so what's on that green space now?
All right, just one should, my fingers have never moved so much.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm assuming, Councillor Musso, you mean the green space that we're speaking of, like the adjacent?
Yeah, adjacent to the
So right
developer.
now, it's just undeveloped green space. There's a small pond, woods.
So people go there, or,
I wouldn't say that there's any developed trails or anything throughout that space. It's more naturalized.
so if we wanna do it ourselves, we cannot do like a parking lot and a small road next to it? Just parking for that area? It makes
Truthfully,
sense.
through the chair, we don't have plans to further develop that open space. It's passive, what we would consider passive green space.
Okay,
So really, there's no developed park assets that would really necessitate a parking lot.
okay. It was an option, like if you could make a parking and people go, we could use it for snow plowing and stuff, I don't know.
Any Councillor?
Yeah.
Sorry, my second comment that I wanted to make was that when the residents were here with concerns, it wasn't just about the green space, it was about that it was going to have traffic going in and out. Traffic coming across from different areas of the subdivision, that there would be additional throughways that they were concerned about. That was an additional concern. Thank you.
Councillor
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These subdivisions off the Garden Road, I know probably some of you haven't been in there, but it's all walkability. I mean, you can walk from one subdivision through the other. It's very well designed. And that brown portion is turned into a subdivision. And there is no doubt in my mind there would be need for a walking trail to go from there across that green space. That is something probably we would have to pay for anyway. So for me, if you want a second outlet, this is a perfect place and time to do it. Instead of making a walking space there, you make it a roadway, which people will still use to walk it. And as Councilor Rolson, Warden Rolson stated, that wherever we get the chance to make a second entrance, we should take that opportunity. And this is an opportunity where we don't have to buy land, we don't have to do anything, it's our land there anyway. It's just a matter of a legal issue going through it. And to Councilor Moose's point, and there's no doubt about it, there are subdivisions that do need this. It's going to take a lot of work to find those second interests, and there's no doubt we're going to have to buy properties to make that happen. And I hope down the road that we will be looking at this, I'm sure we will, but for this going forth right here and now, I mean, here's an opportunity right now, and I can't see what the big debate is that there's going to be a subdivision there. It's already got one way in and out. The second exit is going to be a bonus, plus it's going to be a bonus because it's going to be a walking issue to get over to that other playground there. So I'm fully supportive of the recommended motion that's there. Thank you.
Seeing no one left to speak, and the question has been called, we'll go to the vote. The vote is in. It is passed 8-2 with myself and Councilor Garden Cole voting down. All right, right now, we're past the thing for a break. Everybody want to take 10 to 15-minute break? 10-minute break? All right, we're adjourned to come back after a 10-minute break, so we'll be back at 3:43. You're on.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The Tony Brovosky Trails Association has been established to maintain the trail system in the cottage country development in Mount Uniacke. This was done as per the development and open space agreements associated with this development. This trail association has officially requested that they take over the management of the trails now that the construction is significantly completed by the developer. The agreement is pretty straightforward. It's for 10 years with an automatic renewal. But the municipality has to stand it out if the trails aren't being kept up or if their insurance reneges or anything like that. The trails would allow for walking, biking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, but no motorized vehicles. And any construction of new trails on municipal lands would require approval built to the Nova Scotia Trail Manual Standards. It's a pretty simple part of that. It was part of the DA from the beginning. This was the intent of the DA when it was signed, the development agreement when it was signed. The second part of this is with the naming policy, the municipal park naming policy. Staff is recommending that authority be granted to the CEO to manage the naming policy for these trails, so we don't have to come back all the time to get council approval for if a new trail is developed. The big threat of that naming policy is that we don't have both names, the first and the last name, as a trail name or a park name. They can be one or the other, but it can't be both. It's a pretty quick report here, but staff recommend entering into an agreement with the Tony Brovosky Memorial Trails Association for the operations and maintenance of trails on public parkland on PID 45392578, and recommend that the CEO be authorized to manage the park naming policy on behalf of council for the trails on PID 45392578. You have anything to add?
All right.
That's it.
You've heard the report. I'll open the floor for comment or question. And the first up would be Councillor Musa.
So the trail cannot be named, as our policy cannot be named the Tony Brovosky Trail.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it would be, they're naming it the Brovosky Trail, or one of the trails would be the Brovosky Trail, just the last name.
So is that known to the committee yet? You told them?
Yes.
And they agree on it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because I've known Tony.
Holy moly.
Are we okay now?
All right, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, I've known Tony before he passed. He was a very nice. I don't remember RCMP or police officer, and he got killed in a crash accident. But he was one of the first people moved to that cottage country subdivision, and he was a leader in bringing people in and advocating for that cottage country, taking them in his boat for a ride and showing them around. And he have patience for it, and I think it's well deserved to be named after him.
That all, Councillor Musa?
I would like to move the recommended motion.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Garden Cole. On before the motion was made, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Even though they're going to take over the operations and maintenance of the trails, Parks and Rec will still oversee to ensure that the trails are built to the standard as per the DA. In speaking with members of the committee, there seems to have been a few instances where the developers seem to be pushing some of the responsibilities on them for the trail already ahead of this. So just to ensure that they are clear that the developer is required to do the build and they can oversee that they're not the ones that have to build it or fund it. That's something that I think is very, very important that be made clear to them and empower them that they don't have to do that legwork for the developer. That should be on the developer to do, and then once it's complete, they take it over. I know there's significant work being done, but I know it's not finished yet either, and I want to make sure that it's finished before they don't just get it dumped on them for unfinished. Thank you.
In response to that, are we good? Okay. Seeing no one left to speak, what is your wish? Question has been called for, we'll go to the vote. Votes are in, it's passed unanimously. All right. Next order of business would be a contractual issue in-camera report. I would entertain a motion to move into camera to entertain two contractual issues. Okay? Moved by Counselor Mitchell. Seconded by Counselor Perry. Warden, you want to speak to that?
You have to wait till we get. Oh, I'm sorry, no.
Moved and seconded. What you do? All right. All right, it's been moved and seconded. We move into camera for two contractual issues. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary of mine? Motion's carried. Can you look after that? Right, we're back in Parks, Recreation, and Culture. I would like to report that we met in camera to meet 2 contractual issues. And coming from one of those, I think we may have a motion. Counselor, believe Counselor Hibb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recommend the committee move the Parks and Recreation Culture Committee, recommend the council give the CAO direction to engage in discussions with the Fundy ATV Club or newly formed entity representing multi-mogul groups to entertain a long-term management and maintenance agreement that would be brought back to council for the 8K section of the former DAR lines from Kennycook to the Trenholm Road.
You so move?
Says move at the top. I so
Okay.
move.
Seconded? Good. It's moved and seconded. Any comment or question on the motion? Seeing no one and question has been called, we'll go to the vote. Vote is in, it's passed unanimously. At this time, I would now entertain a motion to adjourn Parks, Recreation, and Culture and the Executive Committee. And following this, we would be going into a council meeting for policy meeting. So moved by Councilor Perry. Seconded by Councilor Musa. All those in favor? Contrary of mine? Motion's carried. We are adjourned the portion of the Executive Committee.
Directly into council, or do we need to change?
Do you want to set up, who was the deputy warden? I just stay there? or- Do I get to pay for this 5 minutes? For 5 minutes.
Are we ready to go into council? Okay, folks, I will call this regular meeting of council for policy and in-camera items to order. The first thing on the list is a report from Corporate and Residential Services Committee. Councilor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on November 21st, 2023 in council chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of that meeting. Comfort Center funding, Knoll Fire Department and Municipal Grant Program Policy Update. The Comfort Centers and Reception Center Shelters funding policy was updated in 2020 to retain financial support information only. All our information was added to the Comfort Center plan. The Knoll Fire Department is an approved Comfort Center. The existing generator failed and had to be replaced. The group is requesting funding support through the policy as part of the 2020 staff report. It was noted that the funding policy would be updated to give staff the ability to approve future funding and all eligible criteria have been met. The information did not transfer to the municipal grant program policy, and therefore staff are recommending a housekeeping amendments to ensure this in the future. The Corporate Residential Service Committee recommends to council that council give notice of intent to amend the municipal grant program policy to permit all future grants under the Comfort Centers and Reception Centers / Shelters funding policy to be awarded by staff in accordance with the policy as outlined in the staff report as attached to the Executive Committee agenda on November 21st, 2023. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Councilor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously.
As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried. Next, we will go to the Planning Advisory Committee report. Councilor Mitchell.
The committee held its regular meeting on November 21st, 2023 in council chambers. The following motion is coming forward as a result of that meeting. Heritage Incentive Program. Staff are recommending amendments to the Heritage Incentive Program to increase the amount of money available to heritage property owners and to include commercial properties in the list of eligible properties. A jurisdictional scan has been undertaken identifying these changes, and these changes are in line with other municipalities. The Planning Advisory Committee, acting as Heritage Advisory Committee, recommend to council that council give notice of intent to approve the amendments to the Heritage Incentive Program policy as outlined in the staff report dated November 8th, 2023. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Hebb. Any discussion on the motion?
Question.
Question's been called. And the motion is passed by a vote of 9-1 with Counselor Rhino voting nay.
As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by Counselor Hebb. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried. We are scheduled with an in-camera land issue, a verbal update from Graham, and a CAO priorities update. I'm told that the CAO priorities can be put off until council evening, given the lateness of the hour today. So I would be looking for a motion to go in camera to hear a report on a land issue. Moved by Counselor Rhino, seconded by Counselor Perry. All those in favor? Contrary, motion is carried. We'll give Adjourned.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Rhino, seconded by Counselor Musa. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion is carried. We are adjourned. We'll give the folks time.